Meantime, breaking tonight, Russia is again expanding its military operations across the Middle East, despite our stern lecture, as it launches a new round of airstrikes in Syria. Just like yesterday, while the Kremlin says it's targeting ISIS installations, we're learning that, in fact, it's other groups, including some U.S.-backed rebels, the ones we're supporting and supposed to be defending, that are bearing the brunt of this assault. At the same time, we're getting new reports that Iran is now sending thousands of ground troops into the region, and that Moscow simultaneously has drafted 150,000 more troops in its own country. Back in Washington, this was the rhetoric we were hearing from some of our leaders.
I take the Russians at their word.
We agreed on the imperative of as soon as possible, perhaps even as soon as tomorrow, but as soon as possible, having a military-to-military deconfliction discussion.
Obviously, we would prefer Russia to make a constructive contribution to our ongoing anti-ISIL effort.
We have encouraged them once again to focus their attention on ISIL.
There could be an opportunity here. There's room for conversation.
Charles Krauthammer is back with us now. I mean, we would prefer, we encouraged them. What are we doing?
We're doing nothing. The administration is aimless, clueless, never had a strategy, and now is utterly humiliated. We actually had the president's spokesman today saying that the Russians are acting out of weakness. They have lost influence in the region. You can't argue against that because it's a delusion that requires chemical treatment. This is really a problem. They really imagine that the Russians, who are on the rise, who are now attacking in Syria, they've been invited by the Iraqis as well. They and the Iranians essentially taking over Syria as we watch, that they are losing their influence. In fact, the Russians have been attacking the very people on the ground from the Free Syrian Army, who are our allies, the few remaining opposition forces who are not jihadi. The Russians are hitting them. Obama was completely taken in by Putin, welcoming the Russians into the Middle East, as we saw in the clips you showed, under the pretense that the Russians would help in the war against ISIL. We know they are not hitting ISIL, and we are now, as you just showed, soft pedaling it and say, as the Secretary of State says, we would be gravely concerned if they are not attacking ISIL. They are not.
Well, they're not.
They lied to us, and the administration, for all its concern, is talking about not getting in the way of the Russians and they not getting in the way of us, which is completely beside the point.
Are we watching the end of our status as a superpower?
We are watching the culmination of a policy begun by Obama when he came into office to get out of the Middle East. That's all he cared about. He didn't care about holding our gains in Iraq. It was a bloody war. You could say that we shouldn't have gone in the first place. But when he came into office, the war was won. Obama himself said Iraq was stable, sovereign, that it would be a success. He evacuates the place. It falls apart. The Iranians have come in. The Shiite militias have come in, and now the Russians and Hezbollah have come in. It is no surprise. You evacuate the area, you are the superpower, your allies rely on you. You leave, everything implodes, and our allies, from the Israelis to the Saudis to the Jordanians, are in absolute panic over the fact that the umbrella America has held over the region for half a century has been folded deliberately by Barack Obama.
Charles Krauthammer, thank you, sir. Good to see you.
My pleasure.